Creation, 1931. Developed by RKO Radio Pictures, this film would have consisted of both live-action and stop-motion animation. It follows the story of a cruise ship going off course and landing on an island filled with dinosaurs, causing these passengers to struggle for survival. Very little is known about the characters, besides one of them being named Ned Hallett. We do know some of the cast though. Creation was produced by Willis O'Brien, it ended up being cancelled. There are several reasons why, including the large expenses and internal agreements. The crew, particularly Murray and Cooper, thought the plot was uninteresting and boring. At the time, only 20 minutes of the film were finished, with a lot of that not surviving, but the footage that did only trucks to about 4 minutes worth. Cooper would eventually incorporate several elements of Creation into the 1933 version of King Kong. Some of that surviving footage was even put into the DVD version of the 2005 Peter Jackson remake, with a dramatization of what the film might have ended up being like.
Dead End, 1985. Directed by Emerson Bixby, this horror comedy was supposed to be a mixed bag of creepiness and slapstick. It featured a man going to document a strange UFO crash, which somehow leads to a zombie apocalypse. It's not fully known why this movie was never released, but it's most likely due to the fact that it contains some disturbing imagery. Real animal blood and guts were used during filming, which were gathered from a local slaughterhouse. This actually caused a lot of crew members to get sick while filming. I mean, wouldn't you? These organs were definitely rotting if it was used for a zombie movie. Emerson once mentioned how his personal copy of the movie was lost in 1987, so the only way to find the film now is to contact all others who have a copy. But that will be hard, as he lost contact with all the other cast and crew members. The only other thing to note about Dead End is that there are reviews on IMDb. Now that doesn't mean that any of these people saw the film, but who knows. It has a combined score of 7 out of 10, which is kind of decent, I guess.
Blazing Samurai, 2017. Out of all the films on our list, this is the closest to being released. Initially set for a 2017 premiere, this animated movie has been delayed time and time again, thanks to a troubled production. It was produced by Stars Animation, who changed their name to Arc Productions. Interestingly, it was to be co-animated by Mass Animation. This is a really shady company that allows everyday people to work for them, have their animations rated, and possibly featured in one of their projects. Pretty much, they're freelancing work to others for free with little actual reward. The film was going to be about a dog voiced by Michael Cera who becomes a samurai in a village of cats. It would have also featured voices of Ricky Gervais, Samuel L. Jackson, and Mel Brooks. This film was actually inspired by his 1974 classic Blazing Saddles, but that film is made more for adults, as it's about a black man becoming sheriff in a town of white people.
I don't hear no singing. When you was slaves, you sang like birds. Come on, how about a good old Network song?
So Blazing Samurai seemed more like a kid-friendly version of that in a homage. But a year before the release in 2016, Arc Productions went out of business and laid off 500 employees. The development was then taken over by Open Road Films and is still being worked on. It is set for a 2021 release, yet we've had no trailers or even word of any major progress being reached, besides a change in director to Rob Minkoff and Mark Koetsier.
New Jersey Turnpikes, 1999. This was a high-budget Universal film that was fully shot and set for release at the end of the 90s. However, it suffered through many post-production issues that halted its release. It mainly stemmed from a change in executives, due to them being fired and replaced. It's just that the new executives weren't impressed with the film and halted the release. The movie centers around a fictional basketball team called the New Jersey Turnpikes, and they just happen to be the worst team in the American Basketball Association. However, thanks to one good player, Cool Williams, played by Orlando Jones, they might be able to succeed. Kelsey Grammer was also featured as both the team's owner and the narrator. Both TriStar Pictures and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer expressed interest in purchasing the film for distribution, yet were turned down. Universal decided to hog the rights to it, as they would rather keep it from being released than have another studio succeed with it. That actually happened with the film Shakespeare in Love, which won Best Picture and several other awards when sold to Miramax Films. But test screenings also weren't impressed with the New Jersey Turnpikes. Yet director Brian Buckley took his cut of the film to the Tribeca Film Festival, and was reviewed by someone on MSNBC. Universal continued to clash with Buckley, and to this day, the mockumentary film has yet to be seen by anyone else.
Convention City, 1933. Along with films like 1932's Freaks, this comedy film led to the passing of the Hays Code. Lasting up until the late 60s, this censored and restricted tons of content that involved violence and sex. This film in particular, as it featured lewd dialogue, suggestive humor, and full-on frontal nudity. The latter of which was also a problem during production, as costume designer Jack Warner kept being told to redesign the characters' looks. But he would not change their costumes, fearing it would conflict with the movie's vision. A few lines had to be cut, along with other censors made. It was critically well received, yet many theaters refused to show it and even burned their copies. Many banned it due to its anti-Christian messages, along with other reasons. Warner Brothers kept a copy, yet threw it out of their archives as the junky film reels had become a fire hazard. Convention City was still rented out to theaters as late as 1937, and a Spanish theater still played it until 1942. By the 90s, it was the only film whose stock footage has survived longer than the movie itself, and the only other piece of it that remains is the script and 200 production stills.
The Man Who Could Not Sleep, 1915. Making this the oldest movie featured, this silent film era picture was about Judge Jeffer, played by Mark McDermott, who is cursed by a lady played by Julia Calhoun. She does this as he unfairly sentenced her to 30 days in prison, and she wants him to learn a lesson. The curse plays on his mind, forcing him to not sleep for 3 days. Then a different woman shows up in his court, facing charges for sleeping on a bench. She did this due to facing eviction, and Judge McDermott takes pity on her. He's finally able to sleep at night, and makes it up for the woman who cursed him. The Edison Company, who earlier released such films as The Great Train Robbery and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, released it in May 1915, but the distributors they partnered with, the General Film Company, were found guilty of antitrust violations. So those associated with the Edison Company lost a lot of money. After being traded around via various film companies, the film inventory re-emerged due to private collectors and archives. However, The Man Who Could Not Sleep was found in the final stages of nitrate decomposition, which caused it to get thrown out. So besides the occasional frame, it's considered lost. But on April 3rd, 2021, the Library of Congress confirmed during an email inquiry that they still had a copy of it, but it also went through nitrate decay.
Something in the Basement, 1986. This film, reportedly being 30 to 40 minutes long, was made by Victor Salva. The plot is about a young boy, played by Nathan Forrest Winters, who waits for his older brother to return home from war. While waiting, he discovers a monster in his basement who claims the brother is dead. It played at various festivals and got the attention of none other than Francis Ford Coppola. He was so impressed by it that he helped produce Victor's next film, Clown House. But infamously, during the filming of that, 12-year-old Nathan from Something in the Basement was molested by Victor. The kid reported the incident and the videotapes made from it, which got the director arrested. Yet, he was released 15 months later on parole, and continued his career. Victor would soon go on to direct Rosewood Lane and the Jeepers Creepers series. Something in the Basement is yet to be released, most likely because of Nathan Forrest Winter himself. His family kept the 2003 DVD of Clown House from circulating, and they most likely did the same for this film.
The Monkey's Paw, 1933. Based on the 1902 story by W. W. Jacobs, it was released by RKO Pictures as a sound picture. Yet what's lost about it is the original English version. We have the French version, so for now all we have to find is the initial audio. It stars Ivan F. Simpson and Louise Carter as Mr. and Mrs. White, who obtains a cursed monkey's paw that grants wishes. The twist is that these wishes will have some sort of unexpected negative consequence. This version featured more plot elements than the original story, like a twist ending and a backstory for the monkey paw. There are multiple reviews up on IMDb, with one of them in particular being posted in December of 2000. The user said he watched the film when he was 9 years old, and described much of the plot. After all these years, I still have a very warm feeling about this movie. I believe it was a first-rate horror film, though definitely a low-budget B-movie filler to kill time before they showed the cowboy movie we had really paid our dime to see. I feel that my recollections of it are vivid enough and accurate enough to justify me entering a favorable vote for it in the database. I wish a print of it were available somewhere so the cable people could show it to us.
Deep Kick, 1995. In that year, the Red Hot Chili Peppers released what many deem as their worst album, One Hot Minute. It featured an entirely different sound and style to their previous album, 1991's Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, due to a new guitarist named Dave Navarro. Over the 3 years it took to make the album, lead member Anthony Kiedis filmed much of it in order to make a documentary. It would be called Deep Kick, and Anthony got director Gavin Bowden involved. Much of it was made, yet was halted from release. The band felt it best to do so, as it featured many negative aspects of their group. More specifically, it featured the infighting between the members and Anthony clearly high on drugs. However, throughout the years, we have gotten small glimpses of Deep Kick. In 1995, they used some of the footage for the music video My Friends, and in 2013, 2 black and white clips were leaked onto YouTube. The uploader actually turned out to be a member of the Chili Peppers fan club. It is unknown if any other footage has made it online.
Quantum Quest, a Cassini space adventure, 2010. It's surprising that a film this big and with such a cast can be lost, yet here we are. The movie was an animated education film with some elements of sci-fi adventure thrown in. It had been in the works for many years, but the idea mainly went off the ground thanks to the Cassini space probe that was launched in 1997. By the mid-2000s, it had reached Saturn and captured tons of photos. The amount of photos captured led to the film being made, as it would use them for backgrounds and the like. By 2010, it was complete, and had one of the most impressive voice casts I've ever seen, including 4 well-known Star Wars actors. The plot follows one of the son's protons named Dave, voiced by Chris Pine. He doesn't want to leave his home, yet has to in order to stop the void, played by Mark Hamill. Other characters include Hayden Christensen as Jammer, William Shatner as Core, James Earl Jones as Admiral, Samuel L. Jackson as Fear, Tom Kenny as Ignorance, Jason Alexander as Moronic, Amanda Peet as Ranger, Neil Armstrong as Dr. Jack Morrow, and weirdly enough, Casey Kasem as himself. He actually appeared at the beginning of one of the trailers.
In other news, Mission Control has just announced the Huygens probe has separated from the Cassini orbiter. Huygens will punch through the thick cloud-covered veil that surrounds Titan, Saturn's largest moon.
The animation was done by Digimax in Taiwan, with the rest of development being handled by Harry Clore and Dan St. Pierre with Jupiter 9 Productions. Even though this is a very high-profile movie with a budget of $10 million, it has rarely been seen. All we know is that Quantum Quest was released in select IMAX theaters in Asia in late 2010, and also popped up for a brief period of time in 2011 in the Kentucky Science Center in Louisville. It was also rumored that it showed up on Netflix for a short period of time in 2015, but that is unconfirmed. For now, all we have of this film are a few trailers on YouTube, which confirm much of the voice cast.
Laserblast 2, 1980. The first Laserblast was released in 1978, and is one of the weirdest B-movies of all time. I definitely need to cover it in a future installment of Movies So Bad They're Good. The sequel was announced 2 years later and was always stuck in various stages of production. No footage is ever leaked, so all we know about the story is from a promotional poster. The ultimate alien weapon is back, and it is with 2 seemingly innocent Boy Scouts in a small Iowa township. The incredible power of the shattering beam of the laser blaster challenges the boys and the life of their hometown forever. If you know anything about the original, it had a similar plot, just focusing on this teenager, clearly played by a grown man. He finds his weapon and is cursed by it, while being hunted down by these naked turtle aliens. So it's assumed that these guys and their weird stop motion would return. The script was worked on by Charles Band and Michael Miner, who would soon change it to a completely different movie, Deadly Weapon. By the early 90s, the film's rights were up for sale, as Charles Band Productions was going through many financial issues. And since 30 years have gone by, we may sadly never get to see more incredible movie scenes like this.
Batman Fights Dracula, 1967. Now, don't get this confused with Andy Warhol's Batman Dracula. That film came out in 1964, yet both are lost and both did not get permission from DC Comics to use the character. This Filipino parody film was directed by Leody M. Diaz and written by Bert R. Mendoza. It stars Jing Abalos as this Asian Batman, and Dante Rivero as Dracula. The plot centers around a mad scientist named Dr. Zorba and his plan to resurrect the famous vampire. He controls Dracula in order to make him stronger, and pits him against Batman. The film ends with Ruben, aka knockoff Robin, and Marita tracking down the Mad Doctor in his underground fortress. They manage to turn Dracula against him, and Zorba dies. The only bits of information we have come from a blog post made on Pellicula ATBP, where the synopsis I just described comes from. Besides this and a couple of stills, we are still far away from finding this obvious masterpiece.